Hi guys, this is Mr. Tan, and today we're looking at hospitality management in the tourism and hospitality industry. And we're going to be reviewing, various things today, trying to kind of cover one of the learning outcomes required in your assignment brief. We're going to be looking at terminology and definitions, what we mean by domestic tourists, international tourists, and what we mean by, all sorts of like key terminology used within the industry. So these are some of the things today that we're going to cover. Now, the learning outcome which we're going to be reviewing and trying to hopefully get an idea of will be to discuss the structure of the hospitality industry and a variety of businesses and organizations that form part of it. So we're going to look at the hospitality industry, and we're also going to include the tourism in there as well as the hospitality side of things. So we're going to be covering both hospitality and tourism. So the session aims is to define tourism from both the supply and demand side, explore the nature of tourism, be introduced to the global hospitality industry, identify the sectors of tourism industry, illustrate the structure of the tourism industry, identify tourism stakeholders, define the hospitality industry, investigate the growth of the hospitality industry, identify the size and scope of the industry, and explore motivations for travel. So we'll be looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs and other motivational factors that may push people to want to go and travel and see another place. The overview, so we've got an introduction, we've got the key terminology, definitions, supply and demand side, the nature of tourism, the different sectors of the tourism industry, and also linked to the different sectors of the hospitality industry as well. The structure of the tourism and hospitality industry, identifying the tourism stakeholders, the travel experience and motivations for travel, and then a review. Because remember that tourism is different from hospitality, so we need to actually split these up, and we need to have a clear picture in our minds exactly what we mean by tourism and exactly what we mean by hospitality. So there are various websites that you can always look at, and these include Travel Weekly, Travel Trade Gazette, and Travel Mole, and various others. So we would advise you to go and have a look at some of these websites. They give you a lot more information on this area. So we're going to be looking at key terminology. So you need to look for additional information that's been uploaded on Canvas as well. So look for this information that's been updated on Canvas for the key terminology, which is going to assist you with these things that we're discussing today. So the question really is, why study tourism? Well, tourism is a global industry, and more people are traveling more now than they did 20, 30 years ago. You've got low-cost airlines, you've got people wanting to see other places, you've got the advancement of technological enhancements like e-travel, e-tickets, and then combined with the technology in terms of low-cost carrier airlines, which makes it a lot easier for people to go and see one place to another. And then when you've got all the social media actually advertising all these different locations around the world, actually making these other locations more exotic and desirable for people to want to go and see. So the global the tourism travel industry is the largest employer on a global scale. It has huge economic importance for so many countries, which we're going to look at. It has a dynamic growth, can be used to heal countries after a period of unrest, and it exists at all levels, and it is growing in demand as people's spending habits move from materialism to experimentalism. I mean, you could say what's happening in the current situation now, and you could be talking about COVID, you could be talking about the hospitality industry being hit so hard in terms of all areas and all countries, which is a fair point. However, as we've just heard in the last few days, that you've got the advent of this new vaccine, which is supposed to be 90% effective. So again, even though we've had COVID-19, which has hit the tourism and hospitality industry extremely hard in all areas and all sectors, there will be light at the end of the tunnel, which is evident in terms of the share prices of many of these companies actually, increasing, 2 or 3-fold in the last few days. So again, you might point to COVID, but there will be a vaccine and it is going to work, and then hopefully in a year, 2 years, we should be back to normal. So this will still be the largest employer, still a huge economic importance and all the other things. So, you need to ask yourself the question, why do you want to study tourism and hospitality? Do you actually want to get into this industry? Where do you see yourself in this industry? And that's something you need to be thinking about yourself. Your future looks bright. Projections, from the WNHTO indicate that tourism will remain the world's largest industry through the year 2020, with travel and tourism sales growing at a rate of 4.1% a year. Employment opportunities in countries such as Australia, Brazil, China, and the United States, appear especially positive. Putting aside of the COVID-19, the tourism and hospitality industry does have a bright future. So what does tourism mean to you? Think of yourself, what does tourism mean to you? That's something you can be doing in your groups, but we're not going to be looking at that right now, but we will be doing this in class. The demand side definition, well, if we look at the demand side definition, these are the activities of persons travelling to and staying in places outside of their usual environment for not more than one consecutive year of leisure, business and other purposes. Okay, so the demand side. Okay, the activities of persons travelling to and staying in places outside of the usual environment for not more than one consecutive year for leisure, business and or other purposes. Okay, so we can see that for Cooper 2012. So the supply side definition. The tourist industry consists of those firms, organizations and facilities which are intended to serve the specific needs and wants of tourists. Lepier 1979 and then Cooper 2012. Okay. So if we look at who are the international tourists, so we need to actually be clear in our minds what we mean by an international tourist. So an international tourist can be a visitor who travels to another country other than which they have their usual residence for at least one night but not more than 1 year, and whose main purpose of visit is other than to exercise of an activity remunerated from within the country visited. So let's look at that again. A visitor who travels from one country to another, other than in which they had their usual residence, okay, for at least one night but not more than 1 year, and whose main purpose of visit is other than the exercise of an activity remunerated from within the country visited. Okay, I'm not sure in terms of the remuneration side of it, because what happens if you then go to work in another country for more than 1 day but less than 1 year, and you are being remunerated for the activity from within the country that you're visiting. But what happens when you are no longer working in that country and you stop working, and then in the evening you go out and you want to visit it as a tourist? So I'm not 100% sure with this definition, because again, we always encourage people to question everything and to come to a conclusion. Domestic tourist, any person regardless of nationality, resident in a country, and who travels to a place in the same country for not more than 1 year, and whose main purpose of visit is other than following an occupation remunerated from within the place visited. Such a definition includes domestic tourists and domestic excursions who visit an area for less than 24 hours, but do not stay overnight. Okay, so again, domestic tourists, again, resident and country who travels to the same place in the same country for not more than 1 year, but whose main purpose of visit is other than following an occupation remunerated from within that place visited. And it includes domestic tourists and domestic excursions for less than 24 hours with no overnight stay. So when we look at defining a tourist, we can see that a tourist has specific needs, and that can be holiday, could be business, health, study, meetings, family, religious meetings, sports, other. According to this model here, for the WTO in Holloway 2012, and it says the purpose of the visits. These are the potential purposes, and then these link into tourists, and the tourists can be categorized in terms of non-residents, national residents abroad, and crew members. But the tourists can also be linked to visitors, and the visitors can be cruise passengers, day visitors, and crews. Okay. So how do we define the hospitality industry? So hospitality definitions, so the Standard Industrial Classification, SIC classification, 1968, defined it as, establishments, whether or not licensed for the sale of intoxicating liquors, providing meals, light refreshments, drink or accommodation. Jones 1996 and Knowles 1996 describes the hospitality industry as any combination of the three core services of food, drink and accommodation, a blend of tangible and intangible elements, and the service, atmosphere and an image that surrounds them. So here are some hospitality definitions in terms of what we're looking at. So tourism and hospitality are two completely different sectors. So if we look at this overlapping circles here, we can see that tourism, you've got the agency, the other reservation activities, the cultural activities, sporting and recreation activities, passenger transport. But then the hospitality includes things like, the hotels, holiday, camping grounds, other accommodation, restaurants, beverages, serving activities, convention, licensed clubs, takeaway food, event catering, in-house catering and other food services. So these are the differences between tourism and hospitality and how they overlap. So when we look at the scope of the hospitality and tourism sectors from Walker 2010, we can see that it comes under an umbrella. And so we look at the tourism sector. It includes air, cruise ships, online services, rail, coach, automobile, tourism. Again, you got hotels, motels, resorts in terms of hospitality, assembly and event management, meetings, convention visitors, excursions, destination management companies, restaurants, again, and managed services would be under hospitality. In terms of recreation, in terms of attractions, gambling, parks and recreations, these are all under the scope of tourism and hospitality under the umbrella combined together. So the nature of tourism, the nature of tourism we can see is the movement of people to and their stay in various places. Two elements of tourism: the journey of the destination and the stay. The journey and stay take place outside the normal place of residence. Gives chance for the host destination to provide tourist activities that are distinct to that destination. Movement of destination is temporary. Okay, destinations are visited for purposes other than immigration or employment. Okay, so this is the nature of tourism. The defining factors of tourism will be the length of stay, the purpose of visit, the distance travelled, and whether it's classified to be an international or domestic tourist. So when we look at the domestic and international tourists again, domestic tourism again usually refers to tourists traveling from their normal, domicile to the other areas within a country. International tourists normally involves a tourist leaving their country of origin to cross into another country, which involves documentation, administration, formalities, and the movement to a foreign environment. So 3 stages of tourism. So the 3 stages of tourism is to, setting up of travel and holiday arrangements, getting people to their destination, and then helping them enjoy themselves once they are there. So these are the 3 stages of tourism. The tourist product, again, the tourist product, often have various characteristics: intangibility, heterogeneity, inseparability, perishability, and it's usually seasonal. When we look at the tourism system now, you have the traveller generating from the generating region, and then the traveller obviously departs, and then within the departing is the transit region where they are departing to, and then you have the tourist destination region where they are and where they've got to, and then after that the returning travellers. And then outside the tourism system you have the environment in terms of the human, social, cultural, economic, technological, physical, political, and legal factors which are affecting these sectors of the travel and tourism industry. Travel and tourism industry includes tourism, which includes hospitality. Travel and tourism and hospitality includes accommodation, leisure and recreation, attractions, events and conferences, tourism services, transportation, and trade travel. Because if you've got accommodation in there, then that's going to include accommodation where the person is staying. It's going to include part of hospitality. Structure of the tourism industry. So the structure of the tourism industry, can be seen in terms of, the private sector. We look at the private sector in terms of travel insurance, currency exchange, travel trade press, marketing agencies, guidebook, timetable publishers, travel training and education providers, private ports, port services. So these are all the things that you may conduct in various activities in order to get you to another destination. And then you've got carriers. So you've got the carriers such as air transport, sea transport, rail transport, road transport, constructed attractions including stately homes, ancient monuments, activity centres, theme parks, restaurants, accommodation, hotels and motels, guest chalets, villas, apartments, caravan parks, campsites, holiday centres. These are all part of hospitality. Public sector, national park, region, tourist information centres, and visa and passport, immigration, state education and travel. And then so these are all obviously affected and influenced by the tour operators and brokers in terms of costs and documentation, travel agents and the tourist. The travel experience, the whole travel experience is the whole start from beginning to end, which will determine the experience that the tourist has. Okay, so that would include the outward journey in terms of the anticipation, perceptions, diffusion of information, choice of holidays, choice of destination, the lead times. Outward journey would lead into the length of stay, the activities, the hospitality, the life enhancing experience, and then the return journey in terms of the impressions, diffusion of experiences, souvenirs and photographs and virtual visits on the internet. So again, all this in terms of what you've experienced during that period from when you leave until you get back forms part of the travel experience. When we look at the tourism and hospitality industry in the UK, well, there are around 180,000 registered businesses within the tourism and hospitality industry. Around 7% of the workforce, are predominantly in this industry. 60% of these people are actually women. The fourth largest GDP earner, £2.7 billion in 2009. So we know it's extremely important to the UK economy in terms of tourism and hospitality. If we look at the economic impact of the hospitality industry, well, direct impact: hotels and related activities, restaurants and related activities, catering and event management. And then you've got the indirect impact in terms of the manufacture of food, beverages, business services such as advertising and marketing research, agriculture and communications. Induced impact includes retail outlets, companies producing consumer goods, and a range of different services, which gives you your total economic impact. So it's not just a direct impact, it's also the indirect impact of all the other businesses that it affects and employs, and helps to produce income in terms of tax for the government, which then helps the overall GDP and amount of money, which is then amount of money that is given by the businesses from tax or from employees who are employed in the workforce, who then pay tax to the government in this industry sector, which could then be used back into the economy of the UK. So if we actually look at direct hospitality employment, and this actually gives us a breakdown of the subsectors. So we can see that if we are specifically looking at hospitality, then we can say that we can automatically see hotels and related in terms of hospitality, hotels and similar accommodation, in a holiday from short stay accommodation, camping grounds, recreation vehicle parks and trailer parks, other accommodation. So we've got this hospitality sector in terms of hotels and related. Then you've got another sector in terms of restaurant and related, in terms of licensed and non-licensed restaurants and cafes, takeaway food shops, licensed clubs, public houses and bars. And then you have the catering side, event catering activities, other food service activities, in-house catering. And then you have event management, convention and trade show organizers. So, and then all these sectors employ X thousands of people within the hospitality sector, and within the hospitality sector there are these subsectors, and each of these subsectors, you can see, actually employ X number of people within their sector over a period of years. So, and then these contribute to the overall totals and a net change between year to year. So this is a good guide, in my opinion, in terms of hospitality and the different subsectors of hospitality within each area. If we look at the historical side of hospitality, we can actually see this does date back to antiquity, to the Middle Age, in terms of thermal baths in villages, for rest developed by the Greeks, mansions to provide accommodation for travellers, on government business built by the Romans, Middle Eastern roots, caravans established as a resting place for caravans, monasteries and abbeys offering refuge for travellers. We think about religious orders, built inns, but they did not yet offer meals, hospices and hospitals for those travelling, numerous refuges for pilgrims and crusaders on their way to the Holy Land. So there were, well documented antiquity to the Middle Ages in terms of tourism and hospitality. We think about the 16th or 17th century, where at the beginning of the 15th century, the law of France required the hotels keep a register. English law introduced rules for inns at a similar time, and during the 16th century, more than 600 inns were registered in England. So more and more people were travelling and staying in hospitality in terms of accommodation and getting a meal and drink. Again, we can see in the 16th and 17th century, the first guidebooks of travellers were published in France. Signs were displayed outside establishments renowned for the refined cuisine. At the end of the 1600s, the first stagecoaches to follow a regular timetable started opening in England. We can see, the Barcelona Ritz had bathrooms with hot and cold water in the 1950s. And we can see some other beautiful hotels here, which date back. In the 1960s, new tourist resorts grew up around the Mediterranean. Spain, Greece, Yugoslavia thrived with the development of the city and the beach hotels. In the 1970s, witnessed the construction of hotels or business people. Black gold, oil attracted business people worldwide to the Middle East. So, in environment and energy conservation became important in marketing. Big chains, reservation systems, become more sophisticated, enabling hotels to foster customer loyalty through database systems, recording guests, individual history and individualized marketing programs, satisfying guests' personal needs better than the competition. So when we look at the, we can actually look at the private sector in terms of hotels, serviced and non-serviced in terms of apartments, villages and cottages, and serviced in terms of guest houses, and non-service in terms of camping, campus accommodation. We can see that service in terms of bed and breakfast and farmhouses, but non-service in terms of youth hostels and campsites. So when we think about the food service sector, they include restaurants, hotel food service, motorway and roadside food service, licensed trade, food for people, out for a drink, and fast food and takeaways. So these are all part of the hospitality sector. Food service sector, employee, feeding, for people at their workplace, welfare catering for people unable to feed themselves, and travel catering for people on the move, and outside the social catering. Government-related hospitality, education and professional qualifications, colleges and universities, institutes of hospitality. So you can see that in the UK now that the UK are becoming more kind of like educated in terms of tourism and hospitality. And tourism and hospitality at level 3, 4, 5 and 6. And more people getting degrees now in tourism and hospitality to make them more educated and familiar with all the principles. So, which is good because then it adds value to the whole industry within the UK, and it makes it more competitive. So let's move on. So AA Automobile Association, Visit Britain, National and Regional Tourist boards, Michelin, including the world-renowned restaurant and chef grading, RAC, Royal Automotive Club. Why grade? Why do we have the stars and why do we have a system? Well, we do it for standardization, uniform service and product quality to show that what's a 1-star, a 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star hotel. Because automatically the perception is that, or the perception I have in my mind is that a 5-star hotel is better than a 1-star hotel. So marketing, inform travelers of choices, advertise destination, consumer protection, revenue generation and control. So when we now look at these stars, we can see that the requirements. So if it's a 1-star, 2, 3, 4, 5-star, 1-star might be courteous staff, informal, competent staff, most rooms ensuite, breakfast and dinner served most evenings. Whereas a 5-star would be luxurious accommodation, extra facilities, multilingual service, guests greeted at the hotel entrance, high quality menu. So it's a different experience from a 1-star and a 5-star. When we look at the awards for hotels and restaurants, awarded annually to AA inspected restaurants for the quality of food as well. And again, this is becoming more and more prevalent within the UK. Is it a Michelin style food service, or what type of food service it is? Advantages: maintain standards, assist in the marketing of establishments, assist customers in selecting hotels and how much they want to pay for what type of service that they want. Disadvantages: not all accommodation is graded, so it's not compulsory. The quality system does not always guarantee quality, it's true, and grading can vary from one country to another. So money, if guests stay in a hotel, they pay more for services. Providing a better service and product to customer, makes hotels more competitive. And it's all about efficiency and effectively and meeting the needs of your customers and making sure that you satisfy these customers' needs so they actually come back to your hotel and also recommend your hotel to other people. So, it's all about being profitable and staying in business for the long term, not just for the short term. Offering facilities for hobbies, gyms, swimming pools, tennis courts, golf, spas becoming a big industry. It can be for guests and locals. Okay, so you have some hotels now that may have a gym, sauna, and spa, and they not only have the guests which are using the gym, sauna, and spa, but they might actually have a membership for locals who live in the area to come and use the gym, sauna, and spa. Activities and events for guests, music shows, films, quiz, karaoke, children. Normally a larger accommodation establishment. Okay, what services are you offering to meet your customers' needs? Popular pastime for cultures, tables, slot machines, sports betting. Big industry leaders through mergers in 2006 include MGM, Harrah's, Caesar's Palace. So a lot of these, when you go to, if you've ever been to Las Vegas and you've got the strip, you've got all these hotels, and these hotels have these themes, and these themes are to pull people in. One of the theme was you've got Caesar's Palace. You've got one palace. You've got two pirate ships outside, and then they put on a show once a day. And the pirate ships are literally almost full-size pirate ships in water, and you've got crew on each pirate ship, and then they do one show a day, and then they pretend fire their cannon, and then one ship is sunk and the ship actually goes down into the water, and all the employees on the ship actually go into the water as well. It's an amazing show. So yeah, and each hotel has its own theme. If you had took back the Venetian Hotel inside the hotel has you can go on gondola rides inside the hotel. Absolutely amazing. In Caesar's Palace, you go into one place and it could be 2 o'clock at night, and the place is so lit up, the dome, you actually think it's daytime. So absolutely amazing themes that the hotels in Las Vegas on the Strip actually put on, and the amount of money they've invested to encourage people to come to their hotels, not only to gamble but to stay and enjoy their facilities. So only certain places in the UK to offer gambling. Strict laws in the UK as to who can run a casino. Very few hotels in the UK have casinos attached. In the US, only 11 states, where gambling is legal. Las Vegas, all the hotels in Las Vegas have a huge casino. You can earn a lot from having gamblers in a hotel. Free drinks to gamblers, loyalty schemes and memberships, food outlets, not far. And, a lot of times all the food in these hotels are discounted. So they're so cheap to encourage people to stay in the hotels and to keep gambling. So, so how does the hospitality industry fits into the tourism industry? Development of the hospitality industry, size and scope, standardization, grading, and hospitality organization. So if we think about the public sector, we can see that, there are different sources of income. And, when we think about the hospitality industry, we're saying to ourselves, well, these are all the public expenditures. So the fact that tourism and hospitality industry within the UK is bringing in billions is actually very, very good for public spending within the UK. Government tax, again, you've got various areas in terms of VAT tax, corporation tax, excise tax, national insurance, income tax. So it's good from the tourism and hospitality industry for the government, because the more businesses within this industry, the more businesses will be paying corporation tax. The corporation tax then go towards the government, so the government can invest it back into the country. Likewise, you've got income tax from employees who work within these industries, which contribute a lot to the income tax, and as to national insurance contributions as well. So we can see that in terms of government tax, that the tourism and hospitality industry, from the business and employees who work within these industries, contribute towards the corporation tax, the income tax, and national insurance contributions. Well, what are some of the motivations for travel? Well, some of the motivations for travel: for business, leisure, health, to emigrate, religious reasons, education. So, and if we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he was discussing the basic safety, psychological needs at the bottom, and then the safety needs next. Love and belonging needs above that, self-esteem needs, and then at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization. And what Maslow was saying was that in order to really reach the higher needs, you must first satisfy the lower needs. So you can't actually reach the higher needs without meeting the lower needs first. So psychological needs, safety and security, love and belonging, self-esteem, and self-actualization. So what are the motivations for people wanting to travel? Okay, so it could be social needs, it could be love and belonging, it could even be self-esteem. But first they need to have the psychological needs met first, and safety and security as well. So as we know, we applied this to COVID, we can see that the safety and security is not there. Hence, at the moment, that the demand is very, very low for tourism and hospitality around the world. Well, in most countries, not in every country, but in most countries. But with the new vaccine, and if the safety and security then kind of sorts itself out, then that would then lead to an increase in demand within the tourism and hospitality industry, leading to self-esteem and self-actualization. So that's it. And so when you are doing your assignment and writing about this, remember to do in-text referencing, and remember to do your reference list or bibliography according to Harvard referencing. So thank you today from Mr. Tan.